Hi guys, this is Caden from Blind Vision, and I'm going to be reading out some Star Wars fan fiction. It's called The Battle of Malastare. Now, this was written in 7th grade, so September 2015, but we're just going to roll with it, alright? So here we go. It all started out normally. We were all sitting in Mrs. Brunner's English class. Some of us were clicking on our braille notes, others were typing on the computers, and we occasionally talked to each other. I was reading a library book. It was a new Star Wars book that had just been printed in braille a few weeks ago. Only one person had checked it out before. Inside, it said, "Warning, read at your own risk." I considered this as a joke, so I ignored it. I had just opened it to the first page when suddenly the door slammed shut. Then the chairs moved by themselves, knocking into each other. We all yelled, and then the chairs leapt onto the table and jumped through the window, though I'm not sure how they fit. Even the table somehow got through. Then our braille notes fell harmlessly onto the floor. Suddenly, our chairs were little space pods, and the table was a landing pad. Then strange sounds surrounded us, and even though some of us couldn't see, colors flashed all over the place. It seemed weird because I thought that in space we would be traveling faster than the speed of sound, and the fact that for some reason Evan, Autumn, Lynn, and I could see very clearly, or even at all, was very weird. And those of us who couldn't see very well or at all before became so once again, except for a very small trace, so we could just make out what things looked like. We somehow managed to land our chair pods on the table pad. Actually, I think the pods were pulled by the Force, because we were on Coruscant in Star Wars. Coruscant was very noisy, gray, busy, and smelled of exhaust. I guessed this was what it was like in New York. Then I said, "What the heck is going on here?" Meanwhile, Senator Palpatine collapsed into a chair in his office. That was a tough meeting, he thought. Now to real business. A compartment opened in his ceiling of the comfortable and luxurious office, and moments later Palpatine was wearing the black cloak of Darth Sidious. Perfect, he thought. Black darkness conceals me and fits me well. He looked around, then pulled the hood down over his face and began to pace. His apprentice Darth Maul was supposed to be surviving against assassin droids and a marshy climate, so his secret Sith spies, Big Saurus and Alina Serena, were helping him in the meantime. They would prove useful in the battle with the Jedi, so he wouldn't be exposed as a Sith Lord. That was the last thing he wanted right now. He turned on his communicator and summoned his partners. They came almost immediately from around the door. They had been waiting there, he knew. They were so faithful and very foolish to not know that they might die in the battle that might occur after the Dug disturbance. "Greetings, Lord Saurus, Lady Serena," Sidious said. "Greetings, Lord Sidious," they both said, Big bowing, Serena starting to, then curtsying instead. Sidious knew she thought it was more ladylike. Being a former barber shop employee and later dancing girl, that hadn't entirely been worn out of her, at least not yet anyway. "Time for our meeting, I think," he said. "Big, please close the door. I don't think we'd like to be overheard, now would we?" Now, the Jedi, that is, Evan, Ian, Flo, Hoodie, Lynn, Autumn, and me, Caden, along with Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Dora Solano, and Tora Sela, were just about to climb into the spaceship that would take us to Malastare. Mrs. Brunner was staying on Coruscant for the moment. The Jedi Council had heard rumors of a Dug disturbance on Malastare, so after we kids had been trained as Jedi after a few days, and were partners, at least for now, to the other 4 Jedi, all 11 of us were sent to Malastare to check it out and stop the disturbance if we found it was true. So now we walked up the ramp of the starship and off to Malastare. Though I felt in the Force something was wrong. Very, very wrong indeed. With the Sith on Malastare, the disturbance with the Dugs was going perfectly, or so Sidious thought to himself. All his partners' ships had blockaded Malastare, so the battle wouldn't be for a while. Unless the Jedi were good at combat, which they probably were. But the disturbance, or rather the diversion, or maybe even the bait, was perfect. Pitting the Dugs against their slave owners was only too easy, seeing as how they already hated each other. They would take over the landing pads, if the Jedi got through the blockade, which they probably would, And after a fight or an argument, the two sides, the slaves and their owners, would tell them each side of their story. In that way, the Jedi would try and help one or the other, either of which would lead them to the Sith. Then the Jedi would die, and Darth Sidious and Lord Maul would rule the galaxy till the end of their days. It was perfect. Now back to the Jedi and the rest of us. By the time we reached Malastare, I knew that something was wrong. I sensed through the Force that the others felt it too. Our fears were first confirmed when the pilot of the ship said, "There's a blockade up ahead." However, that only confirmed a bit of our fears, not all of them. There was something much darker there than a blockade, though that was disturbing too, but only a bit troubling. "Master Qui-Gon, what's going on here?" we kids asked. "Something dark, as I am sure we all know. The dark side is unusually strong here." "If you ask me," said Dora Solano, his face taut and his blue eyes and brown hair moving under his hood, from his forehead wrinkling with concentration, which I could feel in the Force. "The Sith are rising once again." "Possibly," said Torasela, her Laiku wiggling slightly as she shook her head. "I don't know, though. Like Master Jin said, the dark side is strong here." "Are you sure, Master?" asked Obi-Wan Kenobi, who, like everyone except Qui-Gon and the pilot, was only a Padawan. "Not almost certain," said Qui-Gon, "though I know I must be certain. Our minds must be cleared of even fears, my young Padawans. Let the Force flow through you." This we could do, but clearing our minds wasn't as easy. Then, surprisingly, the ship shuddered. The pilot was firing. Then it stopped. We were through the blockade. A bit more of our fear was confirmed when Dugs and Grands surrounded us on the platform and began shouting at us. Dugs are creatures that are considered and used as slaves to the more respected Grands, the other main species of alien that lived on Malastare. They were saying that they were being abused or being overrun by their own slaves. When we asked them to elaborate, they had us follow them into an underground tunnel. We eventually reached a dim light and were suddenly in an empty factory complex. Then suddenly a voice from the shadows said, "Greetings, young Jedi. Welcome. Prepare to know the Force a bit better." Space. All of us whipped out our lightsabers, and suddenly a red one nearly took off Evan's hand. Space. It was so fast that I couldn't even sense through the Force who was wielding the blade, where it had come from, and where it was going. I covered him, but the blade was now attacking Ian, Hoodie, Flo, and Lynn all at once. Or at least it felt that way because it was so fast. Then it was gone. Then two more red blades appeared out of nowhere. There were two of them. We fought as best we could, with Qui-Gon's, Dora's, Ian's, Lynn's, Flo's, Autumn's, and Evan's green blades, and Obi-Wan's, Dora's, Hoodie's, and my blue ones against two red Sith blades. I knew which were which because I had heard the movies and read the books, but also because some of them each sounded a little different, and I could feel which were which in the Force. Then Qui-Gon flashed out with his green blade. And a male scream tore through the air, or through the Force. One of the red blades winked out, then nothing from the source of both the blade and the scream. Through the Force, I just managed to find out his name and character. It was Big Saurus, a supporter and unofficial member of the Dark Lords of the Sith. More fighting was still going on around us. However, our other opponent was nearly a match for 11 Jedi. Most of them Padawans, or at least half decently experienced. Not quite good enough, though, to beat a slash from Dora's blade so fast that we barely caught it. I felt the blow and the death and the scream through the Force. And the female scream through the Force. It tore through the air. Then there was silence. She was called Alina Serena, the Force informed me, and she had walked the same dark path as Big Source had. It was over. No more attacking Sith. We switched off our lightsabers and put our cloaks back on. Sorry, my mistake. Then a shout came from the other side of the room. It said, "Help! Help! Senator Palpatine!" Dora and Tora said together. We got Palpatine out of the passage and onto the ship, but in the Force, I felt something was wrong, and I said so to my friends and fellow Jedi. They said that they had felt it too. The dark side still existed in the Force, even though 2 dark side Sith had been killed. Something was very, very, very wrong. When we got to Coruscant, my classmates and I were named Jedi agents from another galaxy, then met up with Mrs. Brunner. Even though something was wrong, it was a very happy time. I think Obi-Wan might have been a bit jealous about my friends and I getting a promotion at all. Other than that, though, in the disturbance in the Force, everything was very, very good. Just then, we were pulled by the Force towards the landing platform where the table landing pad was. Then we were pulled and pushed into our chair pods. We yelled, then were pulled into space. Weird sounds surrounded us, and light was everywhere. Then it was gone. Then there was a loud we had come back through the window again. The table got in too. Then the table landing pad was a table, and the chairs were now only guided by the Force, not by the engines they used to have to help them along. They landed on the table and then jumped off again, bumping each other. We suddenly had our braille notes and began typing on them and the computers as the chairs landed into their original positions. What was happening at the beginning of the story was happening in almost reverse order. Then the window fixed itself. Then I found myself turning the last page of the library book I was reading before. It seemed like it was all over. Wow, we all said. Whoa, said Lynn, Evan, and I. That was weird. Later we found the table's landing stuff in some of the desks and under some of the tables. Also, the chair pods, rockets, and engines were grouped on the table's landing stuff and on the tables in front of their pod's owner, according to who had owned which pod. Then we all noticed that our lightsabers and Star Wars clothes were somehow in our backpacks or book bags, whatever we called them. These we kept, including the space and landing stuff. It was a very weird, but also cool adventure. So, yeah, I know that was a little short, but, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and sorry for the mistakes. And, yeah. Oh, by the way, these are the newer looking ones are the, what I got for Christmas today. Pretty good, right? And this is what's responsible for the lightsaber fights. I use Studio Recorder for that. And this is my trusty braille note, which I used to write this thing. Actually, I used a different braille note, but it's what I used to read it. Cool adventure, eh? Oh, yeah. In the end. Anyway, God is awesome. He loves you all the time. Let me know what you think in the comments. PG, please. And, may the Force be with you, and, happy holidays, and, goodbye.